the next thing is to talk about the survey process. So that's the entity that is the survey, right? So when we talk about the survey process, we're talking about is sort of the external submissions process, the process of submitting your external thing, or the process of receiving the definitions, or the process of building reports. Receiving surveys or building reports. So the process of the external submission is where it's a process where the survey is the target. All right. So I am building something, and the target of this effort, this project is to populate this survey. Okay. So what do you need to document? So one of the things you have to say is, where is all this information coming from, and how? So, and that falls into the realm of sort of technical definitions and mappings with that target, with those targets in mind. Defining your source systems, and then defining how you pull that data for each field and in an aggregate way. Secondly, there's this whole sort of managing of the process of the request and the project. So due date, priority, milestones, internal approval of your specification. So signing off, like, do we sign off on the design is right? Internal approval of the deliverable and external approval of the deliverable. So those are some of the things that from a request management is important. And then lastly on that is sort of recurring events. So is this something that is that you have to submit monthly or annually? And if so, is it just you rerun it and give them new results, or do you have to basically open it up to review if there's been any changes and do get like a change request going for the process? So those are the things that you want to capture and record around the process. Now, those of you who are cookbook users, this is what we call the specification or a data deliverable. So a spec is really something that defines a process. A report is a process. An ETL is a process, right? A data extract is a process, and a survey submission is a process. The big difference here between what we've had in the past, where basically everything was defined as a report, is that the output of a report is definitions, right? Which can be used for this, but it's not necessarily like a specific, data sort of target, like a file or something like that. So we'll get into a little bit more details on that. So what's really changed is the specificity of the target. Internal survey receiving process. So this is a process. You're getting data, from your survey results, and then you're pulling that into your own report. So it's a process where the survey is the source. Okay, we can ignore the last 30 seconds where I had that wrong. So the survey is the source of the information, and so what do you need to document? So this is the mapping from the sort of data elements in your survey into your reporting data system. So you need to sort of understand and document what your reporting data system looks like, and then the mapping of that data. So where does it end up, and how does it get there? And this, again, they're talking about internal surveys here. And then secondly, then after that, most people don't just collect data for the fun of it. Now they want to do some analysis on it. So at this point, then now you're building reports against that survey data. So this is just sort of regular standard reporting, like we have in the cookbook now, where you're going to build a spec to define a report. And then sharing that out. So then there's lots of ways that we have for sort of sharing documentation of that report, or how it gets published and all that kind of stuff. So there's these two pieces: the document of the receiving the data into the repository, which might just be a spreadsheet, or it might be a full-on database or data warehouse, or SPSS files, and then your reports that you're building. All right, so I take a quick pause here and see if there's any questions or thoughts as we talk about sort of what you have these sort of two different types of reports and then a set of different processes around that. And it's important to, if you've set up your data governance system, to have a knowledge base and to have some sort of approval process and stewardship, that you want to incorporate the documentation of the surveys and the documentation and management of the request of these processes in those tools as well.